Saudi Arabia mourns the passing of its king as speculation grows over whether the oil exporting nation will push on with the same policies under a new ruler. As many of the world's power elite discuss tackling inequality in Davos, a new study reveals that 80 of the globe's richest people own assets equivalent to India's GDP. A very warm welcome to you. If you've just tuned in here on RT International, we're live from Moscow this afternoon. You're with me, Taba Mutse, and the news team. Right, having a different point of view from Washington's makes you no better than armed terrorists. At least that appears to be what the new man in charge of America's government-funded foreign broadcasts thinks. He mentioned RT in the same breath as Islamic State.
We're facing a number of challenges from entities like Russia Today, which is out there pushing a point of view, the Islamic State in the Middle East, and groups like Boko Haram.
RT's editor-in-chief reacted to the statement. She says words like these should be regarded as an international scandal and demanded an explanation from whoever in the U.S. allows these statements. It's not the first time, of course, Russia and Russia Today have been listed as top threats. Now, during his speech at the UN General Assembly in September, the American president said Russia posed a threat to compare to Ebola and, again, Islamic State terrorists. To talk more on the story, we'll later be joined by Ian Dunt, a journalist from London. In the meantime, though, RT is also covering this story online on our website and on Twitter with the hashtag News is not terror. I've been reading some of your tweets. Keep them coming in, please. We're, of course, interested in what you think, so give us your opinion. And don't forget to use the hashtag. Do stay with RT. We'll have more for you. Right, Saudi Arabia woke up to a new king on the throne after the death of Abdullah bin Abdulaziz at the age of 90. And despite the reins of power being passed uninterrupted, uncertainty was triggered in the oil markets and in the political arena. Speculation over the country's future policies and an impact on oil prices, crude futures rose by 2%. Now, the issue of sectarian tensions is also under the spotlight as the transfer of power comes amid heightened volatility between the Sunnis and the Shia minority. Now, of course, there's talk that the death may put a crack in Riyadh and Washington's close ties. The new Saudi king has pledged to stick to the previous king's policies, but some experts say there are points of friction within the royal family. So let's see. What do we know about the kingdom's previous and current leader? Now, the deceased king officially took office in 2005, but was largely seen as a de facto ruler since the 80s and the 90s. He was alleged to have up to 30 wives and left more than 20 descendants. Forbes magazine named him the 8th most powerful person, estimating his personal wealth at $17 billion. His successor is his younger half-brother, Salman bin Abdulaziz. Now, he was the governor of Riyadh province for a number of years. And in 2001, he was appointed Minister of Defense. Right, we'll have more on this, on the transition of power and its likely impact on Riyadh. We're joined live by Richard Wolff, Professor of Economics, Matters of the University of Massachusetts. Thank you very much for being with us, Professor. I suppose with the oil prices reacting, the immediate reaction to how they reacted, one has to ask, is this a serious shift in the market now with this new transition of power? Will things start to shake up a little bit?
Well, there'll be some rethinking, but the likely outcome is little change. This is part of the government. It has shifted from one person to another, but they were all together making these policies. It's really more of a reminder to the world that something as important as oil is decided by a handful of companies and governments, chief among them being Saudi Arabia, and that all of the rest of the citizens of the world have to wonder in agony whether they'll be able to drive their car, heat their home, make their enterprise run with oil, that this is dependent on a tiny number of people is a comment on the inequality of wealth and income and the charade of calling all of this anything like democracy. It's really a sign that we are, in a sense, like we used to be in the kingdoms of medieval Europe, wandering from one dynasty to the next, whether the prince who replaces the dead king will make a difference or not, and then having to wait until they decide to let us know. But the bottom line is, I expect very little change in the policies so far.
Let's talk a little bit more about oil prices and, of course, the cartel that drives some of these prices, OPEC. Is there any chance that this new transition of power, will that perhaps have some small significant change into OPEC and the way it's been operating lately, as well as its decision not to cut oil production to push prices up? Will the new king decide perhaps otherwise now?
I doubt it. I think the basic reality of the oil market is this. The United States decided some years ago, even at the cost of tremendous ecological damage, to engage in fracking, to tap the shale oil in Canada and the United States that could make the United States a major oil exporter. What the United States hoped and wanted, which it failed to achieve, was the ability to add the oil coming out of the United States to a world market without suffering a loss of the price of oil, because it imagined, and this is amazing to have to say, it imagined that all the other countries, particularly the OPEC countries, also Russia, that they would simply reduce the oil they try to export to make room for the United States to become a major exporter. This was naive on a scale that was stunning, but it was doubly naive that the United States thought it could do that while being aggressive in its foreign policy, particularly vis-a-vis Russia, but also vis-a-vis other oil producers like Iran, Venezuela, and so on. All that has now happened is that the OPEC countries, the other major exporters, have said to the United States, no, you're not strong enough, and we are not weak enough to simply allow you to replace us in the world oil market. And what we see then is a classic price war. The prices go down, and the question is, who's left standing when the prices have come down enough to make unprofitable those who cannot play this game this long? And I think OPEC understands that they stand to come out standing up, whereas the fracking producers in the United States, because it costs much more per barrel of oil to get fracked oil rather than bringing up from underground in the traditional way, that in the long run, the United States will have to accept a much smaller role.
Professor Wolf, let me jump in there. I've got a small amount of time left with you. There is speculation that there might be a new oil minister in the foreseeable future. If that happens, how significant could that be? And could we see any change in terms of how the oil numbers have been in the last couple of months?
No, again, I must say, from everything I know about Saudi Arabia's policies, they have committed themselves. There is not a sign of great dissension inside Saudi Arabia about this. They've committed themselves to being the main agent to drive down the price of oil because they're the strongest able to do that. That's in their short-term interest in order to hold on to market share, and it's in their long-term interest to remain the powerful oil kingdom that it has been. So I expect that they will continue the policy of pressing down on the price of oil, whatever happens over the next few days.
Richard Wolf, Professor of Economics Emeritus at the University of Massachusetts, thank you very much for that impassioned analysis on what's going on in Saudi Arabia.